everybody. Thank you very much for joining Novia One Group once more. Today's session is also called Artificial Intelligence, but it's different to the previous one. The previous one with Paul Stander was very much about how to manage robotics projects in large organizations. And today we're going to go into more detail around what artificial intelligence really is. And we're being joined by a young entrepreneur, previously Boston Consulting Group. He could have a sterling and lucrative career as a managing partner of a consulting group, but he has become an entrepreneur and is working in a technology space that is rapidly evolving and hugely interesting. So in preparation for this session, we sent out a Google questionnaire, and we asked what people's thoughts were about artificial intelligence and what they really wanted to get out of this. Okay, so I bucketed the questions and the comments. And one of the key themes that came across is that people were interested in artificial intelligence, particularly around the impact it can have on their career, how they can actually use it to gain an advantage in their careers and to gain, let's say, benefits in the workplace. So how do I take the learnings and use it in my work? And then there was also a question around where is artificial intelligence being used and we're not aware of it? How is it influencing how we interface with everyday tasks? And then probably one of the key themes here, the lines are blurred for me between AI, machine learning, virtual reality, Internet of Things. Do they all fall under the same umbrella? And I resonate with that question because although I've done some reading, I get quite confused and I don't know how to keep the distinctions between the different aspects of AI. And so hopefully Renier will talk to us about this. There was a comment around disruptions will be painful for many in society, as well as later on under risk and ethics. And there were some questions around this as well. How does AI promote bias or prevent bias, and what are the ethics around it? And then on that theme, the compliance managers and risk managers were interested in how do I ensure that AI is compliant with various acts, in particular the POPI Act, and how can I actually use AI to mitigate against risk in the operations of a business. And I know Renier will be speaking to that as well. And then obviously the bulk of questions and comments were around, well, how can we use AI to improve operations in businesses, and what are the limitations, and what do I do with AI if I'm faced with a lot of legacy systems in a business? And then obviously looking forward, I mean, everyone's aware that AI has been evolving very rapidly. And then so what are the trends? What are the key trends? And how is AI going to evolve over the next 5 years? We actually asked some very specific questions. And it seems like the majority of attendees want a better understanding of AI for their own personal edification, but also in terms of how to spot opportunities and projects in their business, and how it can leverage, or how they can use it for their career. Interestingly, the majority of people answering weren't quite sure about the applications, the existing applications of AI in their business. So they were here, the orange bars. They were not sure, and some of them. And then the next largest group were quite clear as to where AI was being used in their businesses in compliance, process optimization, customer service, and cross-selling. And a very, very small minority said, well, actually, no, we're not using AI. The majority feel that they want to understand more about AI. And here, when you look at the pie chart of the roles of people in the audience, the majority, a quarter, answered in tech. They are technical, and that was followed by finance, HR, and operations. But obviously, you're going to have a selection bias because technical people are more likely to fill in a Google questionnaire comprehensively than non-technical people. So maybe they are overrepresented. I don't know. And the final question was around what are your sentiments around AI? And actually, no one said AI is bad. I am aware there is a narrative out there that says AI is a threat to the way to us humans and the way we live. But of everyone attending today, and including myself, the majority feel that AIs are going to be a force for good, and some are equivalent or ambivalent about it, and they're not quite sure. Okay, so over to Renier. Renier van Rooyen, he runs a company called Omino. He's going to talk about his company and what he does, and then he's going to take us through some key concepts around AI. Over to you, Renier.
Yeah, so perhaps just a little bit of background on myself. You asked yesterday how I got into AI, and I mentioned it's been somewhat of a long-term interest of mine, and that I started playing around with systems that could find their way through a maze when I was in school, basically building a system to solve this maze, and started thinking about how computers make decisions. It's only been in recent years that we've really seen deep learning take off. And from about 2015 onwards, I realized that this is going to be an incredibly exciting area to get involved with. And I've spent more and more time studying and really digging into it, and sort of building on the statistical and econometric and mathematical and programming knowledge that I had in the past, and actually trying to focus it more and more on machine learning and increasingly on deep learning to understand what can this tool really do for us. So as you mentioned, I moved to starting Omino earlier in this year, and we really aim to help businesses on this AI transformation journey. So we come in, we help define AI strategy, but I think more importantly, we run AI pilot projects and actually create AI models, test them out, and help implement them into production. And taking you through that entire path where you can see your first AI success and then build upon that. And then from seeing that, then define a strategy for your data and define a way to be successful with AI going forward, because it's very much a long-term project to build a new business value from AI.
While you switch over to your presentation, surely, since you've gotten involved with AI, it must have been, it sounds like it's quite a rapidly evolving field of technology.
Yeah, very.
So a lot of us here are still a bit sort of, we thought we knew what AI was, and probably in recent months or years, there have been major changes. And so maybe you can help us just shape up or update our thinking, update the concepts and the key distinctions, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see that I don't have sharing privileges at the moment, so you might just have to give me the option to share. But I do have some thing prepared to help us shed some light, because there's been quite a lot of different usages of the various AI terms. I think it's very easy to get confused with what is AI, what is machine learning, what is deep learning. And then I've seen people asking about the relationship to Internet of Things, to VR. They didn't mention augmented reality, but that's another important one, buzzword that's been flying around in the last few years. And from the work that I've done back in my consulting days on digital transformation, you see these things being thrown around as things that definitely need to happen, that you need to use. But it's not really always clear where the lines are drawn and what are good for what. There's no point just implementing Internet of Things. You need to fit all of this together.